our 13th edition of the Slammer Brothers podcast. And I have to introduce my co-host, my best friend, my brother, Steve Slammer. Steve, how are you doing today, buddy?
Doing great, man. Lucky number 13, ready to talk about the goings-on in the world of professional wrestling and what's going on with you, man.
What's going on with me? Well, this past weekend was crazy. So there is a really legit pro wrestling school that's about an hour away from my house. So they have a trial class that they want everybody to take before you actually go into the school. And I think it's just a way to show you, hey, this is what you're getting yourself into. So if you don't like, what's going on here, now's your chance to bail. It's kind of a cool thing. I'm actually very appreciative of it. And then they have like a beginner, intermediate, and advanced track, I believe. So on a whim, I decided to go out there. Decided to go and try my luck out there and have a good time. Thank you, Judge Judy Slayer, for following. We really, really appreciate. Hope we
Judge Judy Slayer.
Judge Woo! Judy Slayer. Thank you for the follow. So anyways, I went down there. It was a fun time, the drive, everything, and let's just say bodybuilding and pro wrestling when you're not ready for that level of cardio is not fun. My first so basically what we had to do first was, I think it was like 3 sets of 50 squats. Then we had to do about 100 jumping jacks. We ran around, did 2 laps. Then we did 2 sets of 25 push-ups, but the down-up variety, not at your own pace. My arms and legs felt like jello, and this was beforehand. And then we had to start, just the simple task of like putting your hands over your head and side shuffling around the ring. I was freaking blown up within the first like 30 minutes, and then until I really caught my second wind for that next hour, I was just like, oh my god, am I gonna survive? I don't want to be the first guy to quit. And then one person quit, and I was like, well, I could probably be the second person to quit and no one will say anything. But before that could happen, they were like, hey, we're gonna do some Irish whip drills. And part of me is like, okay, I gotta at least hit the ropes one time before I bail on this. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to push through it. I'm either going to pass out here, I'm going to pass out on the car driving at 65 miles an hour. If I pass out here, I'm more safe anyways. Let's do it, right? So pushed through it, did the Irish whip drills. Was just probably the most fun I've ever had. And then those ropes, bro, they are not comfortable. And you're a tall guy like me, right? Like you're 6'4", I'm 6'2". We're both a couple of tall guys. And what I found interesting about those ropes was it's like trying to figure out the sweet spot. So they said upper middle back. So you got to grab the rope, you swing. And what they told me that made the most sense was, okay, if you hit that rope, you got to hit it hard. Otherwise, you lose all your momentum, and it's just going to make this drill harder. So I was like, okay, I'm so tired. I'm just going to hit this rope as hard as I can each time. But then I noticed, like, okay, I either hit it too low, I hit it too high on my back, and then the next day it was just sore. But overall, great experience. It was just like a bunch of people like us, really nice, who were all about pro wrestling. I made it through the entire workout, which was good. They had to break us up into 2 groups. So the first group did like Irish whip stuff, some basic in-ring stuff, and then the other people did like rolling and tumbling, that kind of thing. And what's very interesting, and which I thought was really cool, was you had to do the tumbles with a partner. So they lined us up 2 by 2, and what they told us, which is cool, and I never thought of that, but it makes the most sense in the world. It's like, go off your partner's tempo and know you can't cue each other. You have to just kind of feel it and move as one unit, because if you really think about it, that's essentially what a pro wrestling match is. So just those little things that they're trying to ingrain in people, I thought that was like a cool way of doing things. I had probably the most fun I've had in a very, very long time, and I'm going to go back. Once I took that first Irish whip, I was like, all right, I'm not an acrobat. I'm never going off that top rope unless I absolutely have to. And yeah, it was fun. I loved it. Gonna do it again. So that was a recap of my Saturday.
Nice. So when do they start teaching you how to do Canadian destroyers? When does that? What lesson's that?
I think that's probably gonna be the third class, right? Because
Third class.
first you gotta. I think, what does it go? It goes freaking first you learn how to Irish whip, then you take a bump, then it's like, all right, cool. Here's how you do a ladder match, right? That's gonna be.
Did they let you take a bump?
We didn't take any bumps on the first class. We did a lot of Irish whips, a lot of those types of things. We did have to, you do the pass by and then you flop on your belly to let the guy jump on top. That was about the closest thing to a bump. And I got to tell you, man, what I have to say about the experience, even if I only went one time and then never did it again, it kind of pisses me off now that guys do this to themselves just for really, really bad bookers to misuse them, mistreat them. It's kind of pisses me off now even more when you see a bad spot on TV. But yeah, we didn't take any bumps that time around, but we did do a lot of up downs, a lot of pass by, a lot of hitting the ropes on the Irish whips. Luckily, a lot of my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling training helped with the tumbling and the rolls and things. Because part of me was like, freak, I haven't done a freaking forward roll in like 2 years. But luckily, instincts kicked in, especially after the first one. I was like, oh yeah, use your forearm, not your head. Those little tricks. I'm like, so yeah, it was probably most fun I've had in a long time. I can't wait to go back again. What were you gonna ask again, Steve?
I was just going to make the comment that you should be proud of yourself, because with one formal professional wrestling school class under your belt, you already have more formal training than half of the old AEW roster. So that's congrats. So that is fantastic, man. That was before AEW started actually hiring professional wrestlers, which is fantastic.
Well, I mean, AEW, dude, it's like I said before, and here's something that a lot of people are feeling. Certain executive producers that you are not so high on, it feels like they're slowly losing their power and slowly being showed the door.
It's because the adults are arriving, man.
Well, dude, I mean, when you see something like, thank you, Seductive Steel, and thank you, Linda Handerfeld, thank you for tuning in.
Whoa!
Yeah. So, yeah, man, but like AEW, the adults have come in. Freaking, I think they're hearing the pops for CM Punk. They're hearing the pops, even by just the rumor of he's going by Bryan Daniels is going to be there, right?
Well, that's his actual name.
Yeah, Bryan Daniels.
Yep.
Yeah,
Bryan Danielson. Yep.
So he's actually going to be there, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, we hear I think they hear yes, yes, yes. They hear the building about to collapse for CM Punk. They see like an actual locker room presence in there elevating their card. I can totally see Tony Khan being like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. Because he's a smart guy. I mean, he pulled off the deal of a lifetime getting Punk into that arena. So I think there's got to be some kind of plan together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there was some convincing going on there. But eventually when the number has 2 commas in it, you don't really need to do that much convincing. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, and let's be real. He's going to work as much or as little as he wants to.
Well, so far so good. I mean, he's there every week. He's there twice a week, actually.
He's there twice a week. He shows up. He gets a pop. But eventually, to what we said on the last podcast, we're gonna need that stare down between him and Darby. It's got to happen.
That should be this Wednesday.
Yeah, because I think, do you think it's going to happen before or after the match with Daniel Garcia?
It should happen. Well, let's go with after, because they seem to be really interested in pushing Garcia, and I think if they do it before, then it just doesn't help Garcia out. So let Garcia do his stuff, get his shit in, as Brian Cage would say. And then you have the opportunity to do the confrontation, the stare down, if you will.
Oh yeah. So do you think I'm trying to play fantasy booker. So do you make it so that Punk shows up, Darby loses concentration, ends up losing the match, then gets
No,
heated, or do you think he ends up beating Garcia after Garcia has a good showing? Because I honestly don't think they're gonna let Garcia win. Like, what is it, 7, 8 days
no.
before, or 6 days before he fights Punk?
No, the distraction, the getting distracted and losing trope is overdone in WWE, and I don't think that they're going to go. I think this is something you just keep straightforward.
Yeah,
You get them face to face, whatever obstacles they have to do that particular day, they get through. You get them face to face in the ring. You get the money shot of them staring at each other. You put that on the pay-per-view poster, and that's got. Hey, I tell you what, I was on the fence about ordering it, especially after they gave us Cage and Omega for
yeah,
the Impact title free.
yep.
You got Punk coming back, and you got him taking on Allen. I'm sold. Let's go.
Yeah, so yeah, I think promotion wise, they should just make this like a UFC fight. Just literally promote it like an actual sporting event and just go from there. Punk's a sports guy. I think he would like that anyway. So, um, I think that match, dear God, it's.
Do you put that match on last?
Yeah, you kind of have to, because I mean
So
that's what you're selling the match on. But I get why you're asking that question because number one, Punk's got ring rust. I wouldn't put it first, like how you were saying,
no,
put
no.
Lashley Goldberg first, like one of those things. Just get the pop and then get him out of there. Um, I would say you post that match either second or third from last. Give it that Rollins Edge spot. Um, and how but here's the problem. You put that match like let's say third to last. I don't think the arena is still going to be full for the semi and the main event if you do that.
Yeah, so I'm kind of torn as to where you put that match, and I think it all depends on what do they plan to do with Punk next. If it's up in the air, maybe you opt to put it last. You've already given us Cage and Omega on free TV. We've seen it.
Yeah.
Um, Now, what I think they're going to do, because they're prone to rush through things, is if you have Punk planning to confront Omega, then you don't put it last. I think you put it second to last, third to last. Give Punk an opportunity to catch his breath. You let Omega go out there and do his 28-minute match, and then you have Punk come. So it all depends on what they're doing. I wouldn't rush into Punk and Omega personally, but I just have this feeling, especially because it's Punk, because they've pushed Adam Page to the side, and because it's Chicago. I think there's and their history of just rushing through things. I think there's every reason in the world to believe that they're going to have, if not a full blown confrontation, then at least some interaction between Punk and Omega.
Yeah, because they're keeping Malachi Black warm for Cody Rhodes. So that one I think they're going to
Yeah.
save for a while. Plus, you got your two badasses. You don't want either one of those guys to lose for a very long time. In the words of the great CM Punk, when he was first talking about Brian Daniels, he basically said, "Keep him as far away from me as possible." Like,
Yeah.
that way we could work together down the road and have like a freaking 5 pay-per-view series, right? Um, I think you either go Kenny Omega, and that would if here's the thing, if you tell me if they go Omega first, I think Omega is on his way out of EVP status. Because in the entertainment industry, executive vice producer really doesn't mean that much. You can pay your way out of just about any contract in Los Angeles. And I honestly think they would accept a buyout if they still had a roster spot available to them.
Well, I think that everything I've heard that is that Tony Khan's kind of a loyal guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to go there just yet, but I think that eventually it's the old WCW in '99 and 2000 problem. When everyone has creative control, no one has creative control because eventually everyone has to agree to do business.
Yeah.
So, at some point in the future, when it comes time for Punk and it'll probably be Omega, to decide what's going to go down, somebody's gonna have to be the adult in the room.
Yeah.
And it should be Tony, unless he hires somebody to handle that, which would not be a bad idea. And that was on one of our little games that we played, where we talked about the fact that they may actually hire somebody to come in and be the adult in the room. I would be okay with that. But I think that eventually, I think for now, all is well. It's fun, it's fresh, it's exciting. The sky's the limit. And all they can do from here really is fuck it up. Anyway, so I'm just gonna enjoy it. And if it's filet mignon, great. If it's a car crash, great.
Well, I mean, you're liking AEW these days. I'm liking AEW these days. Giannis Antetokounmpo is liking AEW these days. I mean,
at least they didn't try and put him through a table like they did with Shaq.
Yeah, I don't think Giannis would have agreed to that.
I don't think the Bucks would have agreed to that.
Exactly. Dude, when you're talking about a franchise player who's got a $200 million contract, I think $200+ million contract, like, that's an investment at that point. You do not let a $200 million investment, I don't care whether it's a building, an airplane, or a basketball player, you do not let it leave the hangar. That is for sure. But yeah, I think everybody in that company has just been stepping their game up lately. Like, the AEW programs seem a bit more logical these days. And have you noticed how they're kind of putting Omega almost in the back seat, like almost in a way to where the AEW championship is a little less consequential these days? How do you feel about that?
You got to give it time. They just had the big shining star of Punk come in, and that glow is not ebbed yet. So I don't know if it's because they're clearly not intentionally downgrading it. I mean, Omega is in his program with Cage right now, and it's still the main program, even if the Punk program is the more popular with the fans program, but it's still there. It's going to be the last match on the show. I mean, I know I asked, do you put Punk last? But no, you don't do that. Not out the gate, and especially with his first match back, you can't.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that they're downgrading it necessarily. I just think that all things shrink when compared to the gigantic star that is Punk right now, and it's up to them to elevate the championship and the champion back into that level. So how do you do that? Well, that's why I'm asking, are they going to have Punk confront him? Because the moment Punk confronts him after he beats Cage, and spoiler alert, he's beating Christian Cage, all of a sudden the AEW title is back up. Yeah,
no, I agree with you there. My opinion on that whole thing is similar to yours. Like, Kenny Omega is not going to lose to Christian Cage. Freaking CM Punk and Christian Cage just had that buddy-buddy moment. They're not going to wrestle against each other. I think. And plus, Punk has already stated he wants to elevate the young guys in the locker room. He wants to work with the young, more motivated people. So I really don't think they're going to have him and Omega go at it just yet. What I think they're going to do is have him elevate the roster from the middle up, I would say. Or actually, Darby's more of the upper middle. Elevate those guys, and then in terms of Kenny Omega, I mean, do you bring back Hangman Page? If it's not Punk, like, what do you do with him at this point?
Well, I think eventually, whenever they get back around to Hangman Page, if Omega's the champion or not, they're going to have to close out their program. So they still have that on the back burner. I think if you're gonna go, you go all in. Pun intended there slightly, but you go all in and you just put the title on Punk. And honestly, I mean, you talked about elevating people. MJF as the main heel as what he should be. I think we all agree. Him in a program with Punk for the title, that elevates MJF back up into that level where he should be.
Yeah.
If once Malachi Black gets done messing with the Nightmare family and you bring him in, that elevates him. If a Bray Wyatt comes in, that elevates him. There's all kinds of ways to elevate the talent without having to. And Well, I mean, you can rush to putting the title on Punk, or you couldn't, but it all depends. Who are you trying to elevate? Are you trying to elevate the Darby Allins of the world, or are you trying to elevate the MJFs of the world? And I think that there's two different ways to go about doing that. I don't think a match between Punk and MJF does as much for MJF as it does as if Punk is the champion and MJF is challenging for the title.
Yeah, I mean, with that, I would have to agree with you in one way where, yeah, it's a title fight. So, yeah, it's got more prestige to it. But part of me feels like Punk, with the amount of pop that he got, I mean, he would definitely elevate the championship, but I don't think he needs the title. I think he's above the AEW championship right now. And I honestly feel like Darby Allin right now is white hot because now they're like, okay, why does Punk want to wrestle this guy? Now you got a bunch of people who didn't know who the hell he was, like looking him up and being like, oh, that's why Punk wants to wrestle this guy. This guy's a freaking daredevil. He's crazy. He's, you know, to quote CM Punk, he's the guy I would have liked when I was 15 years old. Like that. That's what I think is there. I don't necessarily think you need to put the title on Punk just yet, but I think once you do, the AEW championship is elevated to the highest level it's been.
Well, remember, it's not so much about Punk needing the title. Punk doesn't need the title. I think the title needs Punk.
Got it. That makes sense.
And I think that if you, I don't know how long Punk's deal is for. Like, let's say, I'm sure it's not just a year, but let's say you have Punk for 12 months. How do you maximize that? I think you maximize that by getting the title on him quickly. So you get through, so now he's wrestling Omega. And then as the uber popular champion, he could take on a Darby Allin again. He can take on a Jungle Boy, MJF, whoever you want to elevate. And then eventually when somebody does beat him for the title, like, let's just say for the sake of argument, it's Jungle Boy.
Yeah.
I don't know, right? When Jungle Boy pins him for the title, that's not the direction that they'll go in, but let's just, fantasy, pie in the sky type stuff, right?
Yeah.
How much does that mean when, Jungle Boy gets the title and beat Punk for the belt? You want to talk about elevating him? And I think that even MJF losing to Punk in a competitive match for the title elevates MJF.
Yeah.
So it's just, however long they have him for, it's probably not 12, even if it's 2 years. I don't know how much Punk wants to do this for, or how much fun he's going to have doing it, or how much money they're paying him. But, he's 42. You're only going to have him for a finite amount of time.
Yeah.
He strikes me as the kind of guy that's not going to decide to be Ric Flair and wrestle for another 20 years starting at 42. So you got to maximize it. And I think you got to figure out what's the game plan to get it maximized.
Understood, 100%. Speaking of Jungle Boy, how'd you feel about the Jurassic Express tag team match?
I thought it was, first of all, I thought the match was pretty good. I was surprised to see Luchasaurus take the pin. I was actually really, when we get into this match, and I'm like, well, they just had the Jurassic Express lose to the Bucks for the title. And I'm thinking, well, does it make sense to go with the Lucha Bros? But all right, I'll take a wait and see approach. And then when they start Rampage, the Lucha Bros didn't even get an entrance. They were already in the ring.
They did not get an entrance.
No, so now here comes the Jurassic Express, because of course you got to play Tarzan Boy, right?
You do. You just have to. Otherwise, it's a disgrace.
And so I'm like, well, if the Lucha Bros... So for a minute there, I thought, wow, they're actually going to go back to Jurassic Express in the cage. The Lucha Bros versus the Young Bucks is fresher.
Yeah.
I like it, but they're not. I don't see them beating the Bucks in the cage.
No.
And there's no history there. Like, at least there's a history there between Jurassic Express and the Bucks. And I thought, hey, if you put Jurassic Express back in the cage, you have them beat the Bucks to get the belts off of them for a little while, it would be good. I would be shocked to see the Lucha Bros win the titles at the pay-per-view. I would absolutely be shocked.
So,
but that aside, though, the match itself was really good.
Yeah. Dude, it's a good match when your belief is so suspended that the near falls, when somebody kicks out at the very last minute, your heart skips a beat and you're like, what the, no, you were supposed to get pinned, bro. Like, there was so many great near falls, high spots that made sense. Freaking, I think they did the double super kick just perfectly. I mean, I know it's an AEW spot, but it's starting to grow on me. And then Luchasaurus, he freaking held out as long as he could, being the giant he is, but you can only take so much damage before you got to take the pin. So I agree with you. I just don't know if the Lucha Bros are gonna take the titles. I would be shocked if they did. I think Young Bucks aren't gonna drop it because there's no history, unless they just want to go on vacation or something, and they're just like, yeah, let's just.
It would come out of nowhere if the Lucha Bros. My problem with the pay-per-view card as it's developing I think it's even more predictable than SummerSlam. I mean, I'm willing to say with a high degree of confidence, like what did I go 8-1 in SummerSlam?
You went 8-1 in SummerSlam, even on the match that got changed, which was the Bianca Belair match, because you're like, I don't care, she's still losing the belt, and she did.
That would be 9-1 then.
9-1, yeah.
But I'm fairly certain I'm going to feel pretty good about just an absolute clean sweep with this pay-per-view. I mean, if they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, they might, but they might also go for shock value. You never know. Like, that's the thing. Oh.
Well, no, I mean, so I'm not going to go down the whole card, but the 4 matches, right? So Omega and Cage.
Yeah.
Omega's winning.
100% Omega's winning.
It would make no sense to shift the title to Cage.
No, because he already got the Impact title back. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
The Bucks and the Lucha Bros we already talked about. It just doesn't feel like the time to just out of the blue shift the titles to the Lucha Bros, right? So okay, so you got the Bucks going over. CM Punk and Darby Allin. Well, Punk better win that match.
Yes, right? I think that's going to be my lock of the night, is that CM Punk is not losing to Darby Allin. But depending on what kind of shape CM Punk... Here's the thing, dude. I would hate to be the guys or girls who have to perform after that match, because goddamn, that's going to... Here's the real lock of the night there. Remember how... it was basically the Damien Priest Sheamus match, and even though it was a great match because what had happened before was so bad you could hear a mouse piss on cotton for a second, it's going to be the reversal of that, to where everybody's going to be so exhausted from cheering for Punk that whoever goes on next is going to have their freaking work cut out for them.
Yeah, so they're going to need a buffer between. So I think you put the Punk Allen match, have that like third to last, second to last. You just have like a filler match, and then you go to Omega and Cage. But then the other match is MJF and Jericho, and we've already talked about that on previous episodes too. You know, the match that's going to make me feel like I'm in my 6th labor.
Oh God.
there is zero reason for Chris Jericho to win that match.
There is, unless, I mean, well, here's the thing. He didn't retire from AEW. He says he's going to retire for in-ring work. There's a reason why he keeps wanting to work with this kid, so you can tell there's some chemistry there, because they do work well together. It's just one of those things where I'm just like, guys, we've seen this enough times.
Time to move on.
It's time to move on. There's other guys for MJF to work with, like, and even, I mean, that was the hint of realism in MJF's promo. That's why it was so good and it worked, because he basically just said the same shit we want to say, where it's like, God damn, leave me alone.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and at least from a logic perspective, that at least Jericho gave him the only thing that he really could to coax him to get into the ring with him again. But win, lose or draw, well, probably not a draw, but win or lose. If Jericho were to win this, which again would just completely neuter MJF at this point, but if he were to win, they still need to get the hell away from each other.
They do 157%. They need to get away from each other. There's plenty of guys for MJF to work, unless they're keeping MJF they're keeping him warm for somebody else who's coming in. Maybe Bryan Daniels, maybe CM Punk. Maybe this is just something for him to do, and they're like, "Hey, man, just."
We'll see when and where Danielson debuts. I believe it's going to be at the tennis stadium in Queens on September 19th or 24th, whenever it is. A couple weeks away. It would make sense. Big market. Their first foray into the New York market.
Yep.
And, the first time that particular venue is hosting wrestling, so it'll be interesting. And if that's the case, then fine. I'm okay with it. Well, actually, you know what? No, I'm not okay with MJF taking on Danielson because Danielson should beat him too.
Absolutely.
Right? There's certain people that are elevated by losing. I think Darby Allin will be elevated by losing to Punk.
Yeah.
MJF being this asshole, cocky heel.
Yeah, he needs to keep getting wins.
He needs to not get sacrificed to Bryan Danielson on his first night in the company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can't do that. So I think that they're doing it right with Punk, and I think they need to figure out somebody, Jungle Boy maybe. I mean, I don't know. You need a talent that will win by losing.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 110% there. Talk real quick.
Yep.
Okay, I can. Oh, you're still on. Cool. I still see some green bars. We're good.
Oh boy. All right.
No. We're there. We're not at that point yet. We're not at the 58-minute mark. When we hit a stopping point, I will refresh the audio. Boy. Oh, don't you oh boy me. Don't.
Once we're in the studios, the Slammer Brothers Empire Studios. Yes. Then we don't got to worry about all this.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, once that happens. Or, I drag my family to the East Coast, and we just...
Well, Survivor Series is in Brooklyn, man. I told you this when I left Vegas.
Dude, all right. I will start looking for plane tickets for New York and just to see. Just to see,
Survivor Series in Brooklyn, and then we're going to do the Royal Rumble in Tampa, and then WrestleMania in Dallas with 100,000 people.
Goddamn, those are the two I do.
Socially distanced.
Yeah, it's all. No, as you can see here, everybody's socially distanced. We all have. Oh, I think a certain podcast talent was saying that. It's like, man, and then I'm looking through the crowd, and everybody's got a bunch of freaking chin diapers on. Because it's like, look, dude, I get it. I mean, you and I were pretty good about the whole mask thing, but you're not going to enforce 70,000 people to keep their goddamn masks on. There's no way. Especially, you got people cheering. It gets hard to breathe. You're like, no, the masks are coming off over time.
Well, and as you're yelling and screaming, what's happening to the mask? It's getting wet. But that's an issue for the science to detail. And I'm not a scientist. Well, I'm not a medical scientist, and neither are you. So,
no, I'm just a computer scientist. That just. Go ahead.
I just give an opinion.
We just give our opinions. That is correct. That is 175% correct. All right, so moving on, because I think we covered AEW pretty well. I love what they're doing over there. Just don't fuck it up. That's all I can ask.
The momentum is clearly on their side. To your point, they just have to figure out how not to fuck it up.
Yeah. So what I'm starting to realize about SmackDown, they know what they're doing, and it's like, just be patient. We got a plan. Whereas Raw is more like, just be patient. We'll come up with some shit on the fly Sunday night before the show. That's what it kind of feels like in many ways. Because SmackDown, we were just talking Finn Balor. Like, where the hell did he go? Because we're so used to that pace of like, okay, if you see him this week, you got to see him next week. And then boom, 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 boom. Freaking Finn Balor is back. He dropped the gauntlet. He laid down a little bit of a beating himself along with the Street Profits. So at least the Usos have a tag team other than the Mysterios to wrestle with. Freaking Big E is still in the universe. They had that great set with, I actually like this, with Happy Corbin, which it got me. I liked it. I didn't hate it. It's better than freaking mustard on your shirt. This is illogical Corbin, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk, since he's our favorite manager out of the two shows, we have to talk Paul Heyman first.
Oh, yeah. The man's brilliant.
What we saw was awesome because, first off, everybody knows there's tension. He even on his Instagram put a picture of like Lesnar being the dominant figure on one of his Instagram posts. So I'm like, wait, why would you put that picture, right? Then you got the Usos challenging his freaking authority. Roman Reigns wasn't even in the building at the same time. He was locked out. He had some great interactions with the announcers. And then, lo and behold, his interactions with Roman Reigns were freaking perfect. They were very subtle, very perfect. The first one being, for the folks watching at home who didn't get a chance to see it, Heyman is just dumbfounded because he was just accosted by the Usos who were like, "Hey, did you know Brock was going to be there?" Like almost insinuating that Paul Heyman is going to side with Brock Lesnar, right? They go through their back and forth. Then Roman Reigns finally gets to the arena, and Roman is acting like, "I know you're on my team. What's going on here?" And then just how he treats Paul Heyman is amazing. It's like, "What, do I open my own door now?" And then Heyman, who is now just goes into full ass kissing mode, to which makes you the viewer think, okay, is he overplaying this right now because he's back with Brock, or is this one of those things where he's like, no, this is like the boy who cried wolf, who this is actually the time when he's actually being an honest human being and he just doesn't know how to do it. And then finally, before they entered into the ring, he tries to give the tribal chief his belt. He's like, "You're coming out there with us." Doesn't he say "I love you" to him?
Yeah.
When he tries to give him the belt, and then you just saw like Heyman's eyes light up and everything. I honestly think that, even though that maybe you weren't a fan of that one line, what they're doing right now, the merchandise they're putting together, everything, I do not want to see that family break up. It's probably the coolest thing in pro wrestling right now. How do you feel about it? What are your thoughts on the whole on Paul Heyman this week?
Well, I agree. I think the storyline surrounding Roman Reigns right now is the best thing going on any program.
Yeah.
I think he is booked correctly. I think the storylines around him are generally semi-logical and make sense. I could have done without a little bit of the it was just a little too over the top for me. I enjoy Roman just playing it cool and just being like, I know you're on my team.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I know you're with me, but then they play up this, well, maybe he's not. And there's just no way they're going to break him away from Roman right now. I think that, they're trying to tease the possibility that maybe he's, playing double agent with Brock, but that's not the case. And honestly, I don't know how long Brock is back for. I mean, he wasn't even on this show.
Well, I believe he is on the contract that I read according to the memes that I've seen. So I've not read it from an actual source, but from the rumblings of the internet, apparently he is set to wrestle no less than 8 times per year, which seems very high for me. I think you'll get him every pay-per-view, like you'll get him 4 pay-per-views in a year, and then maybe 1 or 2 SmackDowns, and then that'll be it.
See, I get this. So I'll get back to Brock in a minute. Everything with Finn Balor, I hated.
Really?
I hated it.
Why did you hate?
Not so much the interaction. I was okay with the interaction. They announced next week will be Roman Reigns versus Finn Balor for the Universal title. No. Not on SmackDown. Not on free TV. Not without any build-up. So either it's going to be some type of bullshit schmoz ending, or they're going to have Roman beat him. Either way, where do they go from here? Because he's going back to Brock. So now you're using Finn Balor as filler for Roman Reigns to pick his teeth with while he waits for Brock Lesnar to get to what, Saudi Arabia? They're going to fight in Crown Jewel or something like that. Like, I don't. They have him show up. He's third wheel in the Cena Roman thing, and then he just kind of disappears. And I say, fine, at least he's in the orbit. I get it. Cena's here, but now he's not even third wheel because he's filler. Like, what is the plan here with? I get the big picture plan is to keep Roman strong. I got that. I totally agree with that. You couldn't have Kevin Owens come do that again. He's already plowed through Kevin Owens. Let him plow through Kevin Owens some more.
Well, here's where I actually liked it, and I think it happened to do with the interactions. Now, maybe it was because I was just looking at it from a viewer level. Because from a logical perspective, when you listen to what Finn Balor said, it makes perfect sense. And if you look at
I totally agree.
and if you look at the last 3 pay-per-view events, Seth Rollins got overstepped. Freaking Finn got overstepped because John Cena just walked down and freaking signed his freaking contract with Blue Ink, right? So if you're the Finn Balor character, you have to be thinking like, okay, I need a title. I want my shot at the title against this guy, and there's no freaking way with Brock lurking, with all these threats lurking, that I'm gonna get a shot at a pay-per-view. So I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna mess stuff up, and I'm going to get a title shot as soon as I can. Otherwise, I'm not getting it at all.
And I totally agree with you. I think that from a logical perspective and for protecting the Finn Balor character in the moment, yes, that's exactly what he needed to do. However, there's no way he's beating Roman Reigns after this long on free TV.
Yep.
Which means now you are plowing through what should be either your Royal Rumble main event or God forbid, WrestleMania main event, right?
Nah, they would not give Finn. They would not hand Finn Balor to him on WrestleMania.
Well then, who's beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania?
I think we know who's beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania.
Who's beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania?
Mr. Dwayne Johnson. That's who's going to beat him at WrestleMania.
Well, first of all, that would be a bad idea.
Yeah. Well,
The Rock should not be beating Roman Reigns.
Or it'll be similar, or it'll be Well, no, it'll be to finish. Okay, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is based on the rumors that I've read, he may not be at WrestleMania this year.
The Rock.
The Rock.
So okay.
So without The Rock guaranteed, we're getting dangerously close to WrestleMania season, right?
We are.
What is the plan? Who is being elevated on the SmackDown brand right now?
Unless they brought Brock in to do to have him in the back pocket, they have Roman do some filler, and then they keep bringing Brock in to tease us, and then that becomes the WrestleMania event.
Do you want to see a Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns WrestleMania main event for the 4th time?
No, I do not actually, but I'm just saying, like, to your point, other than Finn, maybe Biggie, but Biggie's going to challenge and beat Bobby Lashley. That's what I think is going to happen with the Money in the Bank. So, yeah, you're correct. There's really nobody elevated right now outside of Finn Balor. So you're correct there.
Well, so it's my common criticism of all of their booking right now. Like, look at what they did with Karrion Kross on Raw. So there was no reason to bring him in as the NXT champion and beat him, have him win, have him lose, and then go drop the NXT title and then come back on Raw with this new, gimmick, this red S&M gimmick that he's got now, and then have his dominant win, right? Like, what was the thought process behind that? What was the long-term booking behind that? Who thought that was a good idea for his character to be introduced that way? And then what was the long-term plan going out? So I agree where Finn Balor in that moment to protect what his character is supposed to be, that's exactly what he needed to do. He said, I'm not going to get overlooked. He smacked him down, got it, they got physical. The match was announced for next week. But what happens after that with Finn Balor?
Now,
I don't know.
My question here, is it an actual title match, or is it going to be one of those things where the day of they call it a champions contenders match?
No, it was announced as a universal title match.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, he ain't winning it on free TV.
But hang on. Even if it was a non-title match, they're still not going to have Finn Balor pin him in a non-title match.
No
on free TV.
Nobody is beating Roman Reigns on free TV.
Roman Reigns hasn't been pinned in 2 years. Almost 2 years.
The only way I could see it is maybe if Brock comes out and it's a freaking F5s him outside and then it's a count-out victory or something, but I don't know.
But again, right now, so I don't know what the plan is. So they're going to have to figure out some way around this Finn Balor situation without making Finn Balor look weak or like a chump. And every way that I think of doesn't accomplish it. they needed to stay away from this until it was time to actually do something with it, unless this is how they view Finn Balor. He's just filler. And if that's the case, then that's sad, and it makes me wonder what the long-term future of Finn Balor is, especially since he just came back from NXT with all this momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the ultimate plan with Roman Reigns? Like, who is he facing at the Rumble, and who is he facing at WrestleMania? I don't know. And there's nobody being positioned right now, aside from Balor, to be able to do that. And if you want to say Big E, that's fine, but I still say the Big E match is with Bobby Lashley, not with Roman Reigns.
That's exactly what he is. He's going to cash in Money in the Bank so he can get back on Raw with the New Day, and he's going to get revenge for Kofi. But with the way that we haven't talked about Kofi in a long time about Raw, it was almost like that freaking destruction never even happened. And now he's just been kind of doing some silly side stuff. Like, it was never even addressed what happened with him and Lashley. So
how can an organization that employs writers, they employ a writing team, have no continuity or long-term plan?
I have no idea. That is it a culture in there where none of them, like, because normally with the writing process, you start at the ending you want, right? So when is our ending?
Yeah.
And then you work your way backwards. Like, okay, this needs to happen, that needs to happen. Was it a situation where there were some firings, where there were some injuries? Was it like Nick Khan released a bunch of people, so now all your plans go out the window? Now it's like freaking 36 hours before the next Raw, and you just got to make shit out of Shinola? Or Shinola out of shit?
Well, think back to, I'll just use as an example. You know, if you go back to WrestleMania 4, way back in the day, right? You have the Macho Man wins the world title tournament. He's a good guy. Hogan comes out and helps him. You know, they do the thing with Elizabeth on his shoulder. What was the main event of WrestleMania 5?
What was the main event?
It was Hulk Hogan versus the Macho Man.
Yes, it was. You were correct. I lost.
Right? So obviously, they had that set from WrestleMania 4 through the SummerSlam, and then the breakup, and then into WrestleMania 5. When I look back, that was clearly the plan at 4.
And
was
God,
them wrestling each other at 5.
God damn.
A 1-year plan.
How good was that breakup too? The Mega Powers breakup with freaking Elizabeth in the back. I know Hogan gets a lot of crap because people are like, oh, they didn't like his cutaways at the time. But a lot of them, when you look back in the actual like produced ones with him and Andre doing the contract signing before WrestleMania 3, him and freaking Savage fighting over the back with Miss Elizabeth and doing all that stuff, all of it held up, man. Like, it's all like, part of it I'm thinking this is way better than the shit we get today.
Because good wrestling and good programming is good whenever. Which is why, you know, again, what's their plan right now? It appears to me that the only plan is make Roman look strong and make Bobby look strong. Well, they're doing that.
They're doing that. They're doing a very good job at that, yeah.
But who on the roster for either championship really right now? I think there's more viable possibilities on Raw right now than there is on SmackDown. But they had to bring John Cena back to take on Reigns at SummerSlam.
After they brought in Edge.
That's right.
Yeah.
And now they're gonna blow through Finn Balor because they got to get to Brock.
Yep.
Well, what happens after Brock? So who is Roman Reigns taking? So if you make the assumption that they're gonna do the champion versus champion thing, of which I would totally be down with seeing Roman Reigns versus Bobby Lashley at Survivor Series, sign me up for a little bit of that.
Hoss fight, baby.
Like, I don't even know how the hell you booked that one, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But then who is Roman Reigns taking on at the Royal Rumble? And what's the story heading into WrestleMania? The only thing I could possibly see is do you have the Usos break up? But again, is one of the Usos challenging Reigns really exciting me? No.
Not at all.
But who's left? Who is positioned?
You can't throw in Happy Corbin. I'm thinking about guys who are actually Reigns' size, right? Like Corbin is not there anymore. King Nakamura, no. They've got him playing with the IC championship.
They have him in tag matches to get his guitarist wins.
Hey, I actually liked Rick Boogs in the ring, all right? I like the denim singlet.
I'm not arguing about him in particular. I'm arguing about the fact that they just put the Intercontinental title on Nakamura. The act is over. Now they have him in tag matches so that his guitarist can get pinfall victories over Dolph Ziggler.
Oh, dude, it's not.
So what is this doing for Nakamura, and what's it doing for the Intercontinental title? Jack, nothing. What's the plan?
They don't have a plan. That's the thing. Outside, and what you and I were, and here's the thing, how things have changed. Just 2 podcasts ago, we were talking about an entire multiverse with Roman Reigns. We're like, oh damn, look how they presented everything. Now you've got this threat, this threat, this threat. Now it's like, there's no threats, none.
Well, had they kept Balor away, and it's not about Balor in particular, but it's why are you, if we subscribe to the the circles around Reigns, the orbits around Reigns, why are you crashing through? Why are all these meteors crashing into Planet Reigns then? Just let stuff breathe. And honestly, I'm so down on it right now because it just makes me wonder what the plan is here. I think that's why the bloom seems to be so strong over on the AEW side, because I'm not trying to say that they're going to do any better, but the possibility seems so wide open right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, because the thing is, you've got Nick Khan, who was just firing all kinds of talent left and right, and not just mid-card guys who would have gone to AEW, because early on in AEW, I know the WWE was overpaying guys to not go to AEW until they saw what the product was, and it's definitely its own thing, but they were like, okay, that's not a legitimate threat to us. And then somebody had to pay the price for signing on all this mid-card talent to contracts that were probably a little bit over what they should have been making. Then you cut to this Nick Khan guy who thinks of pro wrestling like a film studio, a standard film studio. Like, there's an unlimited amount of actors out there that we could just grab one of those people. It's like, no. To find professional wrestlers who can compete, it is competitive. I'll say compete. Who can compete, who can perform, who can talk at that level. It's a very, very small talent pool when you really actually dig down deep in all that in that world. So I think that slowly but surely the WWE has screwed themselves. They've screwed themselves hardcore. And before I let you go, it's like AEW just signed CM Punk, who's been out of the game for 7 years. They're going to get Bryan Danielson. They could get Bray Wyatt. They could get Ric Flair to come in as a manager, which I don't know how much moves the needle for you, but I think Ric Flair just went back to NWA.
Ric Flair has a ton of cultural capital.
He does.
Don't.
Ric Flair. He has cultural capital, and definitely him as a manager. If he just straight up manages somebody, like, he had that whole dirtiest player in the game gimmick. If you attach him to somebody like a heel you're trying to put over, that guy's getting over, because it's like
maybe he could buy out Andrade's contract from Chavo Guerrero. And then Ric Flair can manage his future son-in-law.
Boom. That would be beautiful. There's endless possibilities. And then, meanwhile, AEW, because WWE, you got, from what I've read, from what I've heard on multiple podcasts from disgruntled ex-employees, you've got 26 writers who don't care about your character, don't care about you. They're just trying to tell a classic story but not understand how pro wrestling works. But over at AEW, all those guys get to cut their own promos. They probably get to pick their own finishes. They get to call their own spots. They basically get to have fun with their friends. So I have to imagine that the scales are definitely tipped towards AEW at the moment.
Well, it depends on what you're looking for. And I think that the fundamental, you actually said the word, professional wrestlers. WWE believes that they are a sports entertainment business. They don't refer to themselves as a professional wrestling business. As a matter of fact, they go to great pains to avoid the words professional wrestling, right? So they very much view themselves as an entertainment company. I mean, and I don't think that it's a slight from either Nick Khan or even Vince when, they talk about AEW not being competition because they're in different businesses. I think they firmly believe that.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that the consumers of their product are professional wrestling fans.
Yes.
Who I understand that the common criticism of WWE is that it's geared towards children, right? Who's buying the tickets? Who's buying the merch? Who bought a replica Universal Championship with customized SummerSlam plates, right? It wasn't little Jimmy with his $5 allowance.
Yes, it was.
So who is your audience?
It's adults.
And you have to cater.
Yeah. But the thing is, WWE hasn't had to cater for anybody in a while, right? Because for the longest time, it's like they were the only soda company in town for the longest time. It was like you either had them, and it's like, all right, well, if you don't like us, you don't drink soda. Or not any good one, that is.
They're the guy who was the star athlete in high school, and now he's 40. He hasn't had a fight in 20 years, and he's out of shape, but he's still, in his mind, he still thinks that he's the captain of the he's the captain of the football team.
Yeah.
And he doesn't realize that the young buck, who he's just like, because he still thinks he's 17 and can kick ass, he's about to get his ass whooped.
Yeah.
Because AEW right now is they have shown that they are playing for real.
They are most certainly playing for real because, I mean, they've got some serious contract signings. Malachi Black, freaking CM Punk, all the names that we had just rattled off and listed. And then also, if you let those guys come in and really enjoy themselves and you bring in guys who are professionals, that's the key word there, professionals, and you let them do stuff that makes sense. And, I think if Tony Khan stays out of his own way just a little bit and lets those guys do what they need to do, I think that Vince is in some serious trouble. And I think the way that you do that is you just create a product that you yourself love. And you let these guys create characters that they themselves love, and you don't get caught in the Eric Bischoff thing where you quote-unquote want to drive a stake through the heart of Vince McMahon. You just make the best absolute product that you can, that you want to watch. And I think with all of our criticisms towards Tony Khan, he's pulled it off so far. He's given us a viable competitor to WWE.
Yeah, he has a hand in a checkbook. I agree.
Yep. Hey, but somebody's
got to sign the checks, baby.
Somebody's got to sign the checks, baby, and somebody. I mean, he got CM Punk back in professional wrestling. You got to give him credit for it.
Absolutely, and not just and in Punk's case, I think it was more than just signing a check. I think Punk legitimately wanted to make sure that they had a general clue about what it is that they're doing, and I think obviously to his satisfaction, or at least they added an extra zero to make up for any kind of dissatisfaction. They're here. So I think the big difference between the two is that, you have 26 writers or however many they have on WWE programming, and they may have the equivalent of that on AEW between all of the EVPs and the people that have creative control. The problem is those guys are professional wrestlers with professional wrestling minds.
Yeah.
And they're not trying to create show business and viral moments. And so, for a professional wrestling fan, AEW is very attractive right now. And the last thing I'll say on this, though, is that even on the WWE side, the most professional wrestling show that they have is NXT.
Yeah. Agreed.
And now they're neutering that.
Oh, dude, I heard that they are going through a quote-unquote reformat, and
that's right.
The reason why is they're not impressed with the talent that they've produced. And I'm like, no. You guys have produced some sensational talent. Well, your problem is you kill that talent as soon as they go to the main roster.
I agree.
So
look at the booking of Karrion Kross leading into his NXT title match.
It was horrible.
Awful.
It was total garbage. So it's like they basically buried the guy, then they brought him back, and it was like they watched. I think I made this joke before, but Karrion Kross comes back. It looks like one of the writers must have saw like fucking Road Warrior, Mad Max Road Warrior for fucking 15 minutes and said, "Oh, that's cool, man. We're gonna go with that." And then It basically looks like he's the doorman of a fucking freaking BDSM house in freaking San Francisco. That's essentially what he looks like. And this is the guy who's got my favorite finish in pro wrestling. I love his freaking finish, the rear naked choke where you catch the arm in. That's my favorite freaking submission of all time, other than the triangle choke.
They act too much like people don't know what NXT is.
Yeah, NXT was designed to develop talent, so they look at that as the minor leagues, right?
And who knows? Maybe their research groups or their market research that they do shows that, hey, there's people on that watch main roster WWE programming that don't watch NXT. Fine.
Yeah.
However, again, I go back to my original point. Like, in the big scheme of planning all this out, who thought that was a good idea? Let's bring him in. Let's have him with the belt on. I mean, they could have just had him not bring the belt. Get him beat again. Then he comes back. He has a competitive match. Then he has another competitive match. The next day he shows up with a new look and crushes Ricochet.
Yeah, it was bad from the get-go. Personally, I think you and we've gone into this before. Do you ever notice how people who were in the WWE, went to the UFC and came back were just treated like gold? But the people who came from other venues but came in, they were the guys who had to worry because they've destroyed Shayna Baszler. Matt Riddle, basically, I mean, if the Riddle character wasn't like the actual real-life Matt Riddle dialed up to 25, they'd have a problem there. I like RK Bro.
Riddle's mouth may be getting him into a little bit of trouble, but we'll see.
Dude, I'm looking at that right now. I mean, with how hot he is right now, but let's actually let's go into this right now, real quick though.
Okay.
I feel like it has to be a work somewhere because Riddle did a lot of stupid things while he was in the UFC, but he never did anything that stupid. Like, yeah, he had some words with freaking Dana White, but he never went on record saying like, oh yeah, Dana's a piece of crap. Even when he got caught like smoking pot all those times and got into that little spat with Dana, he never quite went after him the way that Reigns did. So I could see one of two things happening. Either A, it's a work, like, hey, RK Bro's eventually going to run its course. We think you're a huge star. You saying all this shit on social media is going to get people talking. Let's do it as a work, like a work shoot type thing. Or, much like his character, he is not acting very smart, and he might be showing himself the freaking door very soon.
Yeah, let's go with the latter on that one. I highly doubt that. As much as I question the sanity and logic of the WWE writers and booking crew, I find it hard to believe that they said, hey, here's a great idea. Let's take the stoner douche with the frickin' scooter and have him be the one that's going to challenge the tribal chief. Only they're going to do it on social media, and Riddle's going to use the words real fight.
Ooh. Well, I mean, they have been disrespecting their own brand for the longest time, but
I think it's more Riddle needs to chill out a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think it's one of those things because when you and when we were walking through SummerSlam, all those big pictures, he was on most of them. He was on a lot of them, actually. So do you think it's one of those things where he just sees himself maybe a little prematurely on that level, so he's like, yeah, I'm going to talk this crap?
I think I don't know. And I think his motivations will and what he's trying. I think, we're a very social media oriented society now. And it's hard to say and especially now with, instant uploads and I mean, this is being uploaded as we speak, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard to say something in an interview and without it going out into the universe, right? So, even when they ask, like they tried to do it with Reigns, where they asked Reigns about, CM Punk coming back, and he made some comments that some people were like, oh, he's dissing CM Punk. And it's like, no, he's not dissing CM Punk. But everyone likes controversy. everyone likes to create conflict between wrestlers because at the end of the day, we're all fans of this because it's supposed to be a fight.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like, I don't care if about Riddle's scooter, or I don't care about, take your pick about the Alexa Bliss's doll, Baron Corbin's money problems. I don't give a shit about any of that. What I want to see is who is the person that's being elevated to challenge Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship? Or are they going to do what they always do, which is, oh, well, we haven't used Cesaro in a while. Let's give him a couple wins. Now he's going to challenge, and then he loses.
Yeah.
Hey, we got Money in the Bank coming up. We need some guys to do some flips. Hey, Ricochet's around. Hey, let's give Ricochet some wins, and then he does his stuff, and then he disappears, right?
Yeah.
Like, what they do such a good job with Reigns and with Lashley, and even you brought up ex-UFC people. They booked Ronda Rousey appropriately, right?
They did.
That was great, and especially when she transitioned to heel, like, it was fantastic, right? Like, they know how to do it, but everyone else suffers from the lack of any kind of forward thinking, planning, and the 50-50 booking that they're so famous for. So who ends up challenging that doesn't come from completely out of nowhere? And to the point that we made heading into SummerSlam, where is your developing talent roster where you don't have to pay Brock Lesnar millions and millions of dollars to wrestle 8 times?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We will definitely see there. But no, I can feel and sense your frustration there. I am I'm pessimistically optimistic about everything because I hope there's this big major plan. But going back to
so well, hang on, real quick, right?
Yeah.
So they have so many people under contract.
They do.
Even with all the people that they're releasing.
Yes.
You got Finn Balor. You got Adam Cole. You got Keith Lee. You got, even guys like Sheamus.
Yeah.
Randy Orton. McIntyre. How is there no one positioned to challenge these guys for a world title? How?
That is.
You have to try to fuck it up that bad.
That is a legitimate concern. I mean, let me ask you this question though: when is the next draft that's going to move some people from SmackDown to Raw and vice versa?
I'm sure it's coming up soon. But here's the problem with drafts: if the soup tastes like shit and you continue to stir the soup, it doesn't taste better. You got to add or subtract ingredients from the soup. You're just stirring the same nonsense around. And so, what are you going to send AJ Styles over to SmackDown? Great, fine. Maybe he could be a viable contender, but you know what? He ain't beating Reigns. Let me ask you this: who on the Raw roster right now, if you were to draft, if they said, hey, we're going to draft 2 weeks from now,
yeah,
who would you move from Raw to SmackDown that you could position between now and WrestleMania to be a viable challenger to Roman Reigns?
I would say McIntyre's the obvious one because he's got nothing to do, but he's still a main eventer, so that one works.
That's a good one.
So McIntyre could definitely do it because they got the United States Championship off of Sheamus and he just had a little bit of a rub with Bobby Lashley. If he could have a good showing against Lashley and you could book him appropriately, Sheamus, because the thing about Reigns is you need somebody who's big enough to actually freaking contend with the guy because he's one of the biggest dudes in the company, right? Arguably, like from a physical standpoint. So Sheamus and McIntyre, those would be the only two because I think RK Bro is too hot to swap out, and I don't really think anybody wants to necessarily see Randy Orton return. And I think he's kind of out of the title slot picture for the remainder of his career. So those are the two that I could think of right now off the top of my head.
Okay, so hold that thought for a second, right?
Okay.
So let's leave and take Randy Orton. Randy Orton's 40-something years old. He's been there, done that. You're going to sacrifice Reigns to Randy Orton?
Sacrifice Reigns? No, you're not doing that. That's
Okay.
why I just said he's not in the picture.
So Sheamus, you could turn Sheamus face. Sheamus, I actually like face Sheamus. I like heel Sheamus. I like Sheamus. I'm a Sheamus guy. No, he's not everyone's cup of tea. But he's been WWE champion. He's been world heavyweight champion. You're going to sacrifice Roman Reigns to face turn Sheamus?
No, but what your question was, who's a reliable threat
Well,
right now?
so hang on.
Yeah.
But I said bring him in, build him up to challenge Reigns at WrestleMania.
Oh, to challenge at WrestleMania, but you said challenge, but not beat him at WrestleMania. You said challenge.
Even challenge him at WrestleMania, right?
Yeah, I mean,
well, hang on. So then that brings us to McIntyre, right?
Yeah.
And McIntyre would be an obvious choice, but I feel he has been so damaged.
Yeah.
By the numerous losses to Lashley, and then this joke Scottish thing he's done with the sword and slumming with Jinder Mahal because they want everyone to remember 3MB apparently. There's who's doing it? I just even a draft doesn't fix the problem.
Exactly. No, that's what I'm saying, because right now it feels like both shows are just tapped out of challengers for the most part, because end of the day, Sheamus, to me, before he can challenge Lashley, he needs to actually get some wins and get back in that main event, main card spot. Damien Priest, who I think he's going to have a Roman Reigns-esque career where, yeah, we all kind of like him as a babyface, but when he turns heel, it's probably going to be his best work. So in reality, bro, there really is nobody. They're not building up anybody who can be that viable threat. And to your point, whoever beats Reigns, that's a huge freaking deal. Like, it means something to beat Reigns now. Like, we're talking about that point.
And it means something to beat Lashley right now too.
100%, but there's no one who could do it. Like, they're not gonna.
So,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so I just pulled up the WWE.com roster of superstars.
Okay.
Right? So I'm not even going to say a Raw to SmackDown or SmackDown to Raw. This is just everybody. It includes NXT, right? So who I'm going to read you a couple names here. Could they transfer him and build him up to challenge and beat Reigns at WrestleMania? Adam Cole.
No.
AJ Styles.
No.
Let's see. Big E, maybe.
That's a soft yes for me. Soft yes, but they would have to book him incredibly well, and they'd have to start today.
Okay. Lesnar is already doing it.
Yep.
Cesaro.
No.
Okay. Here's a outside the box thought. It's not happening. Dominic Mysterio. Not now.
He just lost to freaking Sami Zayn, so no, he's not.
Ooh. Oh, I got it. Dewdrop. No, I'm kidding.
Okay,
we talked about McIntyre.
We talked about McIntyre.
Soft
yes.
It's not Edge. It's not Edge.
Not Edge. No, Edge is really solid filler for him, but no one who you're gonna believe to beat the champion. No.
Elias is being rebranded. Finn Balor, we've talked about.
Yep.
We talked about Happy Corbin.
I like Happy Corbin, but he's not gonna beat it. He's not gonna beat the champion. No.
Jeff Hardy, no. Jinder Mahal, no.
Nope.
You know, he just plowed through John Cena. Morrison's doing his thing with The Miz. I'm actually looking forward to that match, by the way.
That's gonna be a great match. Yeah.
They could have done something with Keith Lee, but he's super damaged now.
Yeah, Keith Lee needs some wins before you can even get back into that universe, back into that discussion.
I think it's over for Keith Lee personally, but that's my opinion.
What about Commander Aziz, huh?
Commander Aziz. Okay, we talked about Randy Orton. It's not going to be Rey Mysterio. It's not Ricochet. It's not Riddle. It's not Bobby Roode. Yeah. Samoa Joe. You know, maybe if he was properly positioned, but Samoa Joe's 40. You know, like, he's not a young man.
Yeah, no.
They could always go back to Seth Rollins, but I think that's not happening anytime soon.
Yeah.
And even then, you're not sacrificing Reigns to Rollins.
You're not. Jinder Mahal. No.
Tommaso Ciampa would be interesting.
Yeah,
But they're not going to do that. And that's it.
If you lose,
that's it.
I will say this: if you lose the BDSM gimmick and you book them correctly from right now to that point, Karrion Kross is a maybe.
Here's what I'd say: if I was fantasy booking this, you pay Volter anything that he wants, and then you have him be the one to just beat the fuck out of Roman Reigns. That's not happening.
No.
Actually, I could see them maybe like doing him with Lashley. Maybe that would be an interesting match. But they're not going to do anything with Walter. There's no one. There's no one on their roster. They've got 200 freaking people here.
Maybe that's why Riddle was
How is there
talking.
nobody?
Maybe that's why Riddle was talking all that crap. He's like, you know what? I'm
Sees an
over.
opportunity.
I'm over enough right now as RK Bro. You can't just magically fire me because he's got to see those merch numbers. So he's like, I'm over right now. So you can't fire me. And by the time like all this blows over, you're not gonna remember. All you're gonna see is those quarterly freaking T-shirt sales. I bought a fucking RK Bro shirt. Okay.
This is it's depressing to see this much talent and this much good talent.
Yeah.
That have been so crushed by awful booking and no planning.
All right. You know what? Shane O'Mac. Let's just make it happen. Just do it. He's put over enough guys over the years. Let him jump. Let him finally jump off of a Hell in a Cell cage and actually hit somebody. Rollins, no, he's too damaged after the Edge loss. Like he'd have to win the.
There's nobody.
I'm looking.
It's crazy. There's nobody.
Damn, you're starting to feel ultra. And I'm going through this roster, bro, and it's all like amazing freaking talent. Like all of it's like dudes who booked correctly. I can mess with them.
I tell you what. Since unless you find
Xavier Woods, how about that? Hey, he beat Lashley. That's all I'm gonna say. He wasn't the one who got snuff filmed.
I tell you what. So let's do this real quick. So since we both have the roster up, clean slate, right?
Clean slate.
You can pick 3 guys off of this entire superstar list.
Okay.
And that you can move the SmackDown and build them up as potential challengers to Reigns between now and WrestleMania.
Ooh.
Clean slate. You can forget about the awful, nasty booking. Which 3 are you picking and why? Oh, and if you want, we can go one apiece. That way, it gives you time to kind of leaf through the.
Okay. You asked the question, so I'm gonna let you go first. Who are you picking?
Well, I would start with Keith Lee.
Keith Lee. Okay.
If you go back to when Keith Lee was the NXT champion and he had that 3-way match with he ended up being last with Reigns at Survivor Series a couple of years ago. He had an awesome match with Reigns, and he got a close pin on Reigns after that Spirit Bomb that he does. And honestly, when he came back just a couple weeks ago, it was an opportunity for them to build him up. He was over in NXT. He's got I know he's not the prototypical WWE look, but he can move. His talking's kind of weird, but whatever. I think they could have done a lot with him, and he's fresh and he's different. And would I have had him beat Reigns? Probably not, because I think that Lee's a little older.
Yeah.
But that could have been a very interesting build-up, and I think you could have built him up as a credible threat to take the title from Reigns.
Okay, that is a respectable pick. For me, since we get to forget all the bad booking issues.
Yeah, you can forget.
Forget all of them. One Drew McIntyre for me, because first off, to compete against it. Okay, so for my thing is, and I'm speaking to myself here because I'm like 6'2", 190 right now, right? Like I'm speaking for myself here. Like I should only wrestle against guys who are maybe up to 220, right? Because I've got like dense muscle. Those are the guys I need to compete against. If I am to, as a fan who drops money on this shit, is going to believe you as somebody who could to beat Roman Reigns, you have to look the part. I love Drew McIntyre's moveset. I wasn't a fan with the stupid fucking sword or the Drew Mahal stuff, but or Jinder Mahal stuff, I should say. But yeah, I would say Drew McIntyre. He's a certified main eventer. He looks good as the champion. He's got that main event moveset. Cool Scottish accent. You book him properly. You get him talking the right way. You get him mixed up with a Paul Heyman too, because by virtue of working with Roman, Paul Heyman's going to work with him. I think it fixes everything. Give me some Drew McIntyre.
Okay. Tommaso Ciampa.
Ooh, what is your reasoning here?
if you haven't had a chance, I mean, he looks like a freaking killer. I mean, he looks like a serial killer. I mean, he's jacked. He can wrestle. That man can go. His match with Walter a couple of months ago was outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I love everything that Tommaso Ciampa does, and I think that again, if you brought him in, he's fresh, he's different, he's got a good look,
Mm-hmm.
he can talk, and I think you could get him into a position where he could strike some fear into Reigns and actually again look like a credible threat to take the title.
I can completely respect that. All right, I'm going through the roster, and this has to be a Raw guy. Personally,
No, it doesn't have to be any. It could be anybody.
oh, clean slate. Well,
Ciampa's NXT. So,
Ciampa is NXT, right? But it's to bring somebody into SmackDown, right? So I'm actually gonna go with another guy who's a proven commodity, especially seeing how he commanded the match with Damien Priest at SummerSlam. I'm gonna go Sheamus. You take a Sheamus who was never brought down to the level of United States champion. You freaking book him properly like he was before. I mean, he was a draw when he was the champion. He can carry the title. Dude is a hoss. He once again looks like a guy who I can believe could beat Roman Reigns. Moveset, mic skills. Come on, man. He brought the crowd back. You remember this with the old school double bicep, and he got us all back in the match.
I love that.
He got us all back in that match, man. He put Damien Priest over. Get me some Sheamus back in. So my two picks right now are Sheamus and McIntyre. Who's your third pick?
Well, my third pick is going to be Reggie, and I think that Reggie is. No, I'm just kidding. No, my third pick is exactly who I started with, Finn Balor.
Yep.
And the beautiful thing is that up until Friday, they didn't have to erase anything.
Yep.
They didn't. They could have just had. I mean, they could have had Finn Balor come out and do the exact same thing, and then have Reigns' reaction to that be, "You haven't. The moment's passed for you, kid. You're not getting a match," and then just have kind of Finn Balor just kind of nipping at his heels a little bit.
Yep.
The fact that they're rushing into this match, I think, is the only mistake that they're making, and I don't know how they get out of it without damaging Finn Balor again, like I said originally. But that in my mind, that's the one. Who, I went with I talked. My first two picks were Keith Lee and Tommaso Ciampa. I think they're fine. They're a little on the older side, I think. But I think Finn Balor is the one. I mean, he was the first Universal Champion. He went back to NXT. He came back. He's kind of, he's slightly rebranded, not entirely, but enough with a little attitude now. All you had to do was not screw it up, and I'm fascinated by Friday.
I'm fascinated also.
I am going to have a bottle of water and a bottle of whiskey. And we will see which one empties by the time that main event is over.
All right, you know what?
Your final pick, sir.
My final pick. So to what you have mentioned to me many times by talking about how good Matt Riddle was in NXT, I got a chance to look at some of those matches. Now, this is an alternate universe where RK Bro never happened, and it's just Matt Riddle, who was the UFC fighter with a winning record, who was actually a pretty dominant UFC fighter. Now, what was the key thing that I said here? If this is somebody who...
Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
So what I've said here is if I have to, as a fan, be able to see you and be able to believe that you're the type of guy who could beat Roman Reigns. You as a former UFC fighter could beat Roman Reigns. I almost said Ricochet, but I just don't feel like the flow would be there for either of those guys. But I feel like with Matt's kind of gritty, harder style, that's going to be kind of my... NXT Matt Riddle is gonna be my what's it called? It's gonna be my sleeper pick. It's gonna be my multiverse pick. Like, okay, Sheamus and McIntyre would be in the universe. Freaking Matt Riddle would be in the multiverse as a viable threat that maybe you could build up into something that could be a champion.
Riddle's such an interesting one, right? Because I agree with you in terms of, I love his NXT work. I'm digging what he's doing now with RK Bro.
Yeah.
But Riddle, the stoner douche on the scooter with the freaking birds flying out of his crotch. You know, that's just mid card forever, right?
Yeah.
And had they taken, I'm not even talking about Matt Riddle out of NXT, because I still would repackage him the way that you said, which is you have him come on and he can still be a little kind of like, yeah, man, like whatever. But like when the bell rings, boom, he's like a freaking maniac in there, and like you got Roman Reigns going like, oh shit, like I don't want to mess with this guy. Like you could have, Riddle would have been an awesome choice.
Riddle would have been an awesome choice. Yeah, especially.
I respect your picks.
Those are good. Yeah, because those are three guys who you can believe who can beat them. Now, there's guys who I would like to see get over, like Dominic Mysterio. But let's be honest, I've been like, I'd say 5 feet away from Roman Reigns. Okay, a guy like Dominic is not beating a Roman Reigns. I'm sorry.
Dominic's getting ready to commit patricide anyway, so.
Oh, dude, he's about ready. It's inevitable. We are about to witness him versus Ray. It's gonna happen, even though it shouldn't happen, even though we don't want it to happen, even though it didn't need to happen. But he had a good showing against Sami Zayn, but then Zayn, freaking being the good heel that he is, basically fucking teabagged him in the way you would a fucking video game after you shot somebody, right? Basically teabags him after the fucking match. They're burying this kid. And the problem is, if I'm a wrestler, I'm not committing to any long-term story plans because, goddamn, look what they did to freaking Bianca Belair.
But are they really burying Dominic right now?
I don't know.
So,
okay, go.
So if he's losing, right? Which he should. He's a rook,
Yeah.
He's a kid. And now he's starting to like, have issues with his dad. And eventually he turns heel. And then he should start winning some matches, right? So like, like you realize like this is not the way. Like I got to do my own thing. You're holding me back.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I could see that, but part of me was like, I was picturing kind of a Ricky Steamboat run for this kid to where he just went his entire career as a babyface because there's really no reason to go. But here's the thing. I don't believe him as a heel. Like, I think with how he is, how he moves, his talent, his in-ring charisma, I would say, you don't really need to make him a heel.
I don't believe him as a babyface or a heel. I think he's just somebody who's, glad to be there with his dad. And I think that eventually he's going to get heat with that because that audience is going to rip him up and spit him out.
Dude, that audience was ripping him up and spitting him out. Remember SummerSlam? How he was in the outside of the ring for like freaking what felt like 5 minutes and people were legit irritated by it. They were like, dude, get up and get in that ring. But
well, that's how it was booked, I'm assuming. But I think that that'll end up coming back to play. It's he's learning. I wouldn't rush into him turning heel because I don't think that there's enough stock in him right now.
Yeah.
And I certainly, if the idea is for Ray to sacrifice himself to Dominic because, hey, I want my son to be over and whatever, I think that fans are not stupid and we'll see through that.
Yeah.
And besides, again, what happens after Ray? Who is big bad heel Ray or Dominic Mysterio going to be going after? Nakamura?
Well, I mean,
Boogs, Reggie.
Nah, I mean, that's the thing. There's no WWE booking. To your credit, they used to do things like you said, WrestleMania 4 to WrestleMania 5. Very clear plan, very precise, precise execution. Now it just feels like you got 27 writers in a room who just throw out random ideas every week, and it's like, okay, let's go with that. Okay, let's go with that. And no one's looking at the very end of the picture like, okay, how are we going to bring this story to an end? Because even during the Attitude Era, they always had an ending. They had a new beginning immediately after, but they at least had valid endings to a lot of things. Whether you loved them or you hated them, Vince McMahon being the head of the the head of the freaking...
Yeah, but even think back to like Bret Hart and Owen Hart, right? So they start sprinkling seeds of that at the '93 Survivor Series, and then it goes into the 94 Rumble where they're tagging together, and then they have the falling out where, Owen kicks his leg. But again, what was the longer term arc? That night they have Brett come back. He wins the Rumble. He's still got the thing going on with Owen, but now he's in the title picture. They go to WrestleMania 10. He loses to Owen at the beginning of the match.
Yep.
Owen has his moment, but again, Brett outshines him at the end
Yes.
because he wins the world title. But even after that, I mean, you could have dropped it then, but then what happens? Then they go into King of the Ring. Owen Hart wins the King of the Ring. Then they go into SummerSlam. They have the cage match for the world title. There was a long plan.
Yep.
With multiple levels where, Brett's doing his thing with Owen, but Brett's also going for the world title. And it made sense when they, like Owen gets ahead of him just for a moment, and then he comes back down, and then Owen comes back and he wins the King of the Ring. And it's just, is that the plan with Dominic? No, the plan with Dominic is going to be he's going to jump his dad, he's going to pin him in a match, and then he's going to be, just nameless heel X, losing matches to frickin', whoever, Ricochet, because Money in the Bank's up the road. And I'm so down on their booking. I'm so down about it.
All right,
I just want shit to make sense.
We are gonna end this on a high note, everybody. We started off this podcast on a happy note, then we talked WWE booking, and then it slowly sours everything. And we were just up on SmackDown not 3 weeks ago, bro.
I need a drink.
God damn it. All they had to do was just not fuck it up, but they chose to fuck it up. That's kind of the way they roll.
Again, we'll see how Friday goes. Maybe they will pull a rabbit out of the hat that they intentionally drilled a hole into. I don't know. We'll see.
We shall see. But anyways, folks, we've gone on for 1.5 hours with no audio issues today. That is a new record for us. I didn't even have to hit the refresh button. But Steve,
that's outstanding.
I think there are brighter days, and one of those brighter days is listening to us, who watches all this professional wrestling so you don't have to, or people who share that opinion with you. So, if you want to be a part of this community that is ever growing, we are the fastest growing independent bodybuilder hosted pro wrestling podcast on the internet. Nah, I'm just being funny here.
Thank God we're not number 2 in that community. We crush everyone else in that 8-word community that we just came up with.
8-word community. Well, that's what they said in radio. It's like, hey, if you really want to be impressive, what you say is you're the fastest growing blah, blah, blah. Like, you don't say you're number 1, you're the fastest growing.
Did we not get more likes while in the midst of the recording here?
We did get more likes. We got more likes. We got more follows. We got more chat. We got a lot of everything going on here. So, folks, if you want this to, we love putting this content together for you folks, but we need your help. If you ever watch this, just be sure to hit the follow button if you're on Twitch. If you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. And then we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everywhere else. If you love what you see, give us one of those 5-star reviews. And if you don't love what you see, maybe just keep your opinion to yourself so that you don't mess up the algorithm. Steve, is there anything that you would like to promote, sir?
No. I would like to promote Jack Slammer Fitness. Jack Slammer Fitness is awesome. He knows what he's doing. He will get you in shape. He will get you looking ready for the beach. If you want a 6-pack, if you want to stop drinking the 6-pack, if you want to be more fuckable, whatever it is that you want to do, he's the man that can take care of you. I will segue into his self-promotion, but I'm telling you, it's the real deal. Absolutely get with this man. He will help you be your best self.
Thank you so much for that glowing recommendation. I want to help you folks lose some weight, put on some muscle, or, as Steve just said, increase your fuckability by about 1 to 2 points on the Richter scale. So, if that sounds like something you want to do, please go to jackslammer.com, mention this podcast to me in the comments section when you do the intake form, and I will hook you up with an awesome deal this week. Follow us on TikTok at the Slammer Bros. Follow us on Instagram at the Slammer Bros. And until next time, we love you and goodbye.